You're listening to episode 34 of the Fed and Fearless podcast. On today's episode, you'll hear from my private business coach, Sara Anna Powers, on how she went from being a young woman with an eating disorder to a successful multi-six-figure online entrepreneur and business coach. So stay tuned. Hi, I'm Laura Schoenfeld. I'm a registered dietitian and coach trained in functional medicine with a passion for helping women just like you ditch perfectionism and use food, fitness, and self-care to fuel your bigger God-given purpose. I believe that it's possible to achieve your biggest life-changing goals without the frustration, obsession, or negative self-talk that so many women subject themselves to every day. All you need are the right tools, the right mindset, and the faith to turn your dreams into reality. I'm here to guide you along the way. The truth is that you are so much more than a body, and I'm on a mission to help you change the way you think and act at a core beliefs level so you can transform your physical, mental, and spiritual health from the inside out. Are you ready to become fed and fearless in your pursuit of a healthy, meaningful life? Welcome to the Fed and Fearless podcast. Hey there, welcome back to the Fed and Fearless podcast. I'm Laura Schoenfeld. I am your host as always, and I'm so excited today to have on the show with me today my coach. Now, it's interesting. I think a lot of times when people bring their own coaches onto their podcast, they talk about business or the specific thing that they're being coached in. As an example, in the past, I've had my own strength and conditioning coach come onto the show and talk about strength and conditioning for women. But this is a little bit of a different episode today because I wanted to chat with my coach about how she went from being a woman with an eating disorder that very nearly took her life to a successful online entrepreneur and business coach. The reason I wanted to share her story is because I want anyone out there who is struggling with low body image or disordered eating or anything that's holding them back from living the life that they desire. I want this episode today to give you hope that there is so much more for you in your future. So I'm super excited to have Anna Powers with me on the episode today. She is, like I said, my private business coach, and I've been working with her for close to 2 years now. It's by the time this episode comes out, we'll be a couple months away from our 2-year anniversary of working together. So I've really loved working with Anna as a business coach. She is really a lovely person, and she specifically works with Christian entrepreneurs on growing and scaling their online business. So if you don't know Anna, I will give you a quick introduction to her. And she goes by Anna, even though her website is Sara Anna Powers. So if I call her Anna, that's because that's how I refer to her as her first name. Well, or at least the name that we use when we're chatting with each other. But if I say Sara Anna Powers, it's the same person, I promise. So Sara Anna Powers is a success coach and a copywriter who is passionate about helping women pursue their powerful purpose in business. Sara Anna is a licensed attorney who has transitioned to running her own business full-time and helping other women who desire to make a massive impact in the marketplace. Through her magnetic messaging program, she helps female business owners create captivating copy that compels their ideal clients to buy. Through her one-to-one coaching and Magnify Mastermind, she helps online business owners scale to 6 figures and beyond. Sara Anna also hosts the Faith Forward Online Business Podcast, where she encourages and motivates online business owners who desire to keep their faith front and center. So like I said, Anna has been so awesome to work with over the last 2 years. I'm in her mastermind and also work with her to get private coaching. And she has really helped me get a lot of not only progress, but take a different mindset around the work that I do in my business. And so it's been really, really valuable to work with her and to also just watch her grow her own business and to be in integrity with the way that she serves her clients. It's been very inspirational for me. So like I said, today's episode, we're really focusing more on Anna's story and how she overcame a really serious eating disorder to become the multiple 6-figure business owner she is today. And my hope is that it'll inspire you any of you who are struggling with body image or disordered eating to just know that there is so much more for you and that you are capable of doing amazing things in the world. All right. So without further ado, here is my coach, Sara Anna Powers. All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm so excited to have with me today my personal business mentor, Sara Anna Powers. Welcome to the Fed and Fearless podcast, Anna.
Thank you so much, Laura. I am thrilled to be here. I've really been looking forward to this interview.
Yay. Well, so I know that there's so many things that we could talk about because of the audience that I have being interested in nutrition and health. And then also there's people listening that also run their own businesses. And I feel like this will be a really great opportunity for us to kind of combine those things together. And first, I want to start with your story because I know you have a pretty interesting history as far as how you've gotten to where you are. So I would love to hear from you so the audience can get to know you better. How did you go from being a young woman with an eating disorder to having a successful online business and becoming a business coach and entrepreneur?
Ooh, well, we could settle in for about half a day if I told you the drawn out version, but I'll do my best to keep it succinct. So I did struggle with both anorexia and binge eating from about the years of 2009 all the way up until around 1999, all around up until about 2005, 2006. And a lot of that was really actually quite connected to some traits that have helped contribute to my success in business, which is for any of your listeners who may have struggled, especially with anorexia in particular, there can be a lot of perfectionistic tendencies. And, along with the ability to starve yourself, you have to have this insane self-control and almost this ability to turn off pieces of yourself to just kind of plow through. And that can be really helpful in life if channeled correctly, but if channeled incorrectly, it can be incredibly destructive. So I did struggle with eating disorders in my, from about age 19 to 25, 26. And for me, it was really a Holy Spirit moment. It was the shifting point for me was looking in the mirror and not recognizing my face, because at my lowest weight, I was about 103 pounds and I'm 5'7" approximately. And I had binge eaten up to more than 220 pounds. I quit weighing when I got past that point. And for years, my identity was so tied to being tiny that then when I went the other way, it was just very jarring. And I remember looking in the mirror and I really could hardly recognize myself because my face shape was completely different. I had all this extra weight on me. And I also added that weight very quickly. Like, I think I gained 60 pounds in 6 months. I mean, it was something just very, very rapid. But in that moment, I felt the Holy Spirit just sinking into my soul and saying, you're still you and you're still loved. And I loved you at 140 pounds and I loved you at 103 pounds and I love you at 220 pounds. And the fact that your weight has changed doesn't change who you are at your core. And again, it was a divine intervention moment. There's not a way that I could have orchestrated it. But I held on to that for dear life. And I started living my life as a loved person. Instead of living my life to get love, I started living my life as a loved person. And that changed everything for me, Laura, because all of a sudden I didn't need the box of donuts to help me feel cared for. I was already cared for. And so it actually became quite easy to stop at 2 pieces of pizza instead of eating the whole thing. And so it was a slow process for me to lose the majority of the weight that I had put on. And I don't think I ever got back to the original set point, but I'm okay with that. And yeah, it was just a shift in perspective that enabled me to just come at my health from a totally different angle and appreciate myself as loved. So that's the first part of your question. How did you and go from an eating disorder to an entrepreneur. So after I was in recovery from both the anorexia and binge eating, I was in law school and became a lawyer and finished law school in 2009 because I worked for a few years between undergrad and law school, which was a terrible time to come into the job market. And I actually got a great job making almost $100K straight out of school, which blew my mind. I was a teacher before I went to law school. So I was used to making $27,000 a year. That's what we pay teachers in Mississippi, unfortunately. It's super sad. But I came out, I had this great job, and within the first 2 weeks, I thought, we have a problem. This is not where I'm designed to be. But then I felt so stuck and trapped because I worked my whole life. From the time I was 8 years old, I wanted to be a lawyer, and now I had it. And, could I be that would be so ungrateful to say, I want to do something different. So I was in my 5th year of practice, and it had only gotten harder, and my pay had actually gone down because, during that recession period, everything hits Mississippi a few years later. So firms started to cut salaries. And so I was like, wait a second, I'm working way harder and I'm making, $10,000 less per year than when I first came out of school. This is not a great trajectory. And so I applied for coaching with one of my mentors, Dan Miller's company, and got placed with a coach. And that's how the whole business began.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing that. I know, like you said, it could probably be a much longer story than what that nutshell version was that you shared. And I really appreciate you talking about, with the eating disorder piece, the idea that the eating disorder was almost like a problematic reflection of something that could have been a positive for you and is now a positive, your ability to focus and to kind of cut out distractions and to, push through things that are difficult, because as both of us know, running an online business has some pretty serious challenges that come up along the way. And if you're a person that won't be able to ignore that kind of stuff or push through it, it can be really hard to continue on. So it's almost like you had this ability to work hard and to stay focused and to not let your emotions derail you from your goal, but it was applied to this thing that wasn't actually good for you and was really causing a lot of harm and ultimately was not God's purpose for your life, which I would never say anyone's purpose for their life is to be obsessed with their food and exercise routine. But for you, it was obviously got to a place where it was, really serious and medically dangerous, I assume, too.
Yeah. And it was really interesting, Laura, because from the age of 19 to 23 was when I was really in the thick of the anorexia piece of it. And all through college, my parents, as soon as this happened, we started with outpatient treatment and, counseling and here, get on Celexa. And, I remember the first counselor I went to, I didn't feel depressed at all, to be honest, but she looked at me and she said, "You're depressed." And I was like, okay, I'm depressed. All right. I guess you're the expert. So, and it's almost like then I not only had an eating disorder, then I actually became depressed, but I still to this day do not think I was depressed. I think I let her speak those words of death over me, refused to reject them, which we have the power to reject anything untrue that's spoken over us. But I didn't, at 19 years old, have that maturity to be able to do that. But my parents, who are just amazing, kept trying to get me to go inpatient treatment. And I kept saying, no, I can't do it. I'm secretary of the student body and I have a 4.0 and all these things that I didn't want to look bad. And finally at age 23, the tables turned and then I was begging them, please send me to treatment. And it was interesting because at that point they were almost hesitant because I had resisted for so many years. And so they're understandably thinking, well, are you really going to change? Because we've been working on this for 4 solid years now, and you've only gotten worse. But by the grace of God, we worked it out, and I went to Remuda Ranch in Arizona, and then I got there, and there were so many people who were there for the 3rd time. And I thought, oh no, I thought this was going to be the guaranteed fix. And I just prayed my heart out and said, God, this is out of my hands at this point. And it really was. It was beyond me. I need you to make this work.
And I feel like obviously your situation got to a place where an inpatient eating disorder treatment made sense. A lot of the women that I work with, their health and their behavior isn't anywhere near that restricted. And so they would never necessarily, go to that level of treatment. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but obviously it's a huge expense and it's really like it takes you out of your life. So it's obviously something that not the average person is going to just go to if they are struggling with maybe a little disordered thinking around food, but, generally having a normal day-to-day life. But it is something that I see in a lot of my clients where they have this perfectionism tendency, and it usually goes in one of two different directions. One direction is that I'm going to eat everything perfect. I'm going to exercise every day. I'm going to follow all the recommendations that I see online and make my diet as clean and as perfect as possible. Or the other way that reflects is this, well, I can't do everything perfectly because it's too much and I'm too busy and I'm too stressed. So I might as well not even do anything because why even bother? So I do see a lot of people that have that perfectionist mindset have the all or nothing outcome with their food and fitness and healthy behaviors, hopefully healthy. And it ends up being something where if you go in the direction of being overly into it and overly obsessed and focused on that, a lot of times our society actually holds that up as something worthy of praise as well.
Oh, totally. And you basically just described, and I'm so glad that the majority of your clients, aren't at the place where I was at. But I also think that it would be remiss of me not to say it is a very dangerous road to walk when you get into the all or nothing, because I started out just trying to get healthier. That's it. At age 17, I had done a theater show, which had kind of taken me out of my regular routine. I wasn't sleeping enough, and I put on like 15 pounds. And my mom did the cabbage soup diet, and I thought, let me do this diet. And I saw this book, and it's actually, this is, again, not to knock this book because I think there's tons of value in this book, but it was a Dean Ornish book called Eat More, Weigh Less. And I thought, that sounds amazing, and I want to do that. And the book was all about, if I recall correctly, it was about vegetarianism. I became a vegetarian. So nothing wrong with that at all. But I took it to the extreme. And over time, I got more and more and more rigid. And it fell right into my desire to be this, perfect controlled person. And I was seeing these results because the weight was dropping off because I went from eating fast food all the time into healthy vegetables, which again is great. Like, it's not the book or that plan that was at fault. It's the taking it to that all or nothing. And one simple thing flipped a switch for me, which was that I actually went on a mission trip to Argentina, and one of my co-missionaries had struggled with anorexia. And so being around her for those months and watching her disordered eating, I just picked it up. But it was like I had already laid the groundwork by being so rigidly focused on I have to follow this one person's plan to the absolute letter. And then when you talk about the all or the nothing, the binge eating came in. What actually propelled that, I had been in recovery for several years. I had made a move to Atlanta. If anyone of your listeners lives in Atlanta, the traffic is insane. So to avoid sitting in traffic for an hour and a half on my way to work every day, I would get up at around 4:30 and get to the gym. Again, kind of a bit of that all personality, got to do it perfect. And my particular body just doesn't, I've never done well working out in the morning. I'm a night exerciser. It just takes me physically a long time to like get warm enough to get an effective workout in. And I sprained my ankle. And my family was so concerned that I would go rigid and starve myself again that they really encouraged me, just, don't worry about it. Don't worry about not being able to exercise. And that's fine. But I took it to the other extreme, which is, and I remember I was at a Bible study and these girls were eating Chick-fil-A and they were skinny. And I was like, well, I should be able to eat Chick-fil-A too. And so, but my body, because I had denied myself of that kind of stuff for years, had starved myself for years, all of a sudden, like, didn't know what to do with it. And so one Chick-fil-A turned into, the Chick-fil-A with the large fries and the ice dream cone or whatever they call it. And then, that was great. What about pizza? What about a Big Mac? I mean, I just went off the rails, but it was a reaction. It was like the restriction for years, we're going to do it completely perfect and rigid, that actually played a huge role in propelling me into the like nothing. Well, you can't exercise, so you may as well eat crap. And then your body is just doesn't even know what to do with it. So you just eat more and more and more because you already messed it up once. And you wake up and you're 220 pounds.
Well, and like you said before, it sounds like both ends of those extremes was really stemming from this lack of feeling love for yourself or feeling loved in general. And so it sounds like that was such a big turning point for you, where deciding that you were going to allow yourself to feel loved no matter what your weight was, whatever you were eating, however you were exercising, that was what allowed you to start actually taking care of your body in a way that was good for you and helpful, and allowed you to then start putting your attention onto your career. And then, now in this place where you're able to build an amazing business.
To things that just have so much more, eternal value than what the shell looks like. And I did want to say something about, when you said sometimes when we get into this rigid phase, we're actually applauded by society. When I came back from that mission trip where I lost the initial chunk, where I started digging into the anorexia, and I weighed about 115 pounds. And again, at 5'7", I was pretty scrawny. And I was in the gym at Ole Miss, University of Mississippi, which is kind of known as a school that, has a lot of, I'm sure all colleges do, to be frank, but there's a lot of eating disorders there. At least there were when I was there. And a girl came up to me and she said, "Oh my gosh, you've lost so much weight. You look so amazing. How did you do it?" And I said, "I went to a foreign country and starved for a couple of months." And she goes, "Oh my gosh, I need to do that too." And I said, "It's really not that fun." And it blew me away. But I knew when I came back from that trip, and I was finally the one thing I had never been, which was skinny. I had always been smart and kind and funny and talented, but I had never been skinny. And all of a sudden I was skinny, which our society does, I think, just totally idolize in some ways. I knew it was going to be hard for me to kind of block out what other people were saying. So yeah, the key is to call it out for what it is and nip it in the bud as soon as possible, and really learn how to love yourself and truly appreciate yourself, not just for the external, but for who you are.
Mm-hmm. Well, you definitely did not go to a super unique college, because I remember having similar experiences at my college. And I even lost, I'm trying to remember, I think it was 30 pounds when I got to my freshman year of college, because I played on the volleyball team and I was super active, and I wasn't under eating or anything. I was actually eating quite a lot of food, but it was just doing, 2-a-day workouts with the volleyball team. You just naturally get pretty athletic looking. And I remember, being a wallflower in high school. I went to prom by myself. I was kind of low self-esteem, just kind of focused on my education and that kind of thing. And then when that happened and all of the attention that I started getting, I got into a sorority. I had my first boyfriend, all of these things that my, little 19-year-old brain was like, "Oh, it's because I look better now. And this is really important that I maintain this." So I don't think that that's unusual. And it's unfortunate that, when you're off in college, there's not a lot of, adult supervision to make sure that you're not learning these bad habits or these inappropriate beliefs and that kind of thing. And I think a really big reason why I wanted to have this conversation with you on the podcast is because I want people to see what's possible for them when they actually do the work to overcome disordered eating. And again, an eating disorder where you have to go to an inpatient facility, that is something that is a lot more, I feel like there's a lot more support and medical treatment that has to happen for that, versus a lot of the people that listen to this podcast, they might just be struggling with a lot of anxiety around food, or they don't really know how much they need to eat to really fuel their body, or they're always thinking about how to lose the last 10 pounds. And I feel like that kind of disordered mindset around food is really, really common. And it's something that is pretty normalized these days with the kind of diet culture that we have. So I wanted to bring you on to show what your life can be like if you are able and you do the work necessary to get help in that area, to get to a place where your body image and your weight and your diet and all of that stuff is not the most important thing that you're focused on day in and day out.
Yeah, it can be so awesome. And, one of the things that kept me scared for so long was, and again, I know as we've discussed, like my case was way more extreme than a lot of listeners. But something that really held me back from like embracing that I'm just going to love myself, period, no matter what I look like, was people would tell me who had kind of gotten past their disordered eating. They would say, well, yes, I'm healthier now. Like my weight is in the right range now, but I still like obsessively think about food, and you really can't get over that. And I was like, well, screw that. I mean, if I'm going to have to gain weight and I'm still going to be thinking about food all the time, no, thank you. And again, it was honestly hugely due to my relationship with the Lord and some things that he was speaking into my life, that I was like, no, I don't buy that. I don't care how many people have told me that. I do not buy that I can't be in a healthy weight range and not obsess about food at all. And that's really that's what I feel like now. I mean, for the meal that I had before I got on this podcast, I had a couple of eggs. I threw in some cheese. I didn't measure it or see how many ounces it was, big old handfuls of spinach, some Kalamata olives. And I had gotten a steak a couple of days ago with the amazing bread that this local steakhouse makes. And I had a piece of that bread left over. So I'm like, cool, I'm going to have that bread, and I'm going to have a little small, slightly sweet mocha with some 2% milk, and I feel awesome. And it wasn't about oh, how many calories is this? It was just about, okay, good. I'm hungry. I need some protein. I love cheese, and that's going to give me a little more, it's going to give a little more sticking power to my meal. And then, I love coffee. And so I'm going to add that in wherever I can. But, if there's a celebration and I want a dessert, have a dessert. But I love actually eating foods that really feel like they fuel my energy. So I eat a ton of vegetables. I eat a ton of fish, good proteins, but it's not a stress. And I used to get so worried and even turn down social invitations. If people were going to a certain place and I wasn't sure if I could find something to eat, I would miss out on dinners with my friends, or I would go and feel super stressed out about it the whole time and, be obsessing over what the heck I was going to order that was going to not, throw me off track. And that stuff is just long gone.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a very common issue that I see in the women that I work with, is it's beyond just the anxiety about what they're going to cook, but they actually avoid socializing because they just don't want to deal with this extra anxiety of how do I eat when I'm out, or what's the food going to be when I get there, or maybe they even bring Tupperware containers with them because they don't want to eat what the restaurant is serving, that kind of thing. So it is something that everybody listening to this podcast doesn't necessarily know you unless they're coming from your audience, but it is amazing to me to see how you're an example of using self-care as a way to really up-level yourself as an entrepreneur. And I can imagine that your food and exercise choices these days probably in a large part revolve around how is this going to help me show up and serve my audience, my clients, and run my business to the best of my ability.
Absolutely. Exercise wise, I have a private trainer that I've worked with for, oh my goodness, almost 2 years now, who's incredible and quite premium, but it lets me, get my workouts in at home. I've got a BOSU, I've got kettlebells and dumbbells, and I like feeling strong. I want to be able to show up. I speak on stages. I need to have endurance. It's no joke to be in stilettos for a full hour on stage in front of 600 people, and you've got to have some energy and some stamina for that. And I got a Peloton tread last August, and I'm obsessed with it because I love to run, but I also do love to work. And what I found was I'd work late enough that it would be dark outside. And even though I live in a really safe neighborhood, there's woods around. That just doesn't seem like the best idea to run by the woods at 10 o'clock every night. And I've got my Peloton. And so, but again, I look forward to those workouts because it's actually, they help me clear my mind and create, like I become more creative after them. And it really enhances the way that I'm able to show up in my business. And if I miss my workouts for 4 or 5 days, because I travel a good bit as well, I feel it. So even in the hotels, even if it's just a 20-minute body weight workout from the Peloton app, I'm gonna hop in and do something. I stretch every day. My mom's a yoga teacher. But yeah, it's not about, I want my body to look a certain way. It's like, I feel so much better when I do this. And the looking a certain way or feeling better in your clothes, that's like a great side effect.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like, not everybody listening to this podcast is an entrepreneur or self-employed, but I do think that looking at the time and energy you put into your food and your fitness and all of that is really more of an investment into how you're able to serve the world as opposed to an end goal in and of itself. And that's really where on this podcast, we kind of try to show people that you can use evidence-based nutrition and exercise guidelines and all of that to help you feel your best so that you can fuel that bigger purpose that you feel like is in your heart, given to you by God, and is really able to have that impact on the world you want to have. So I did want to get your opinion about this. Let's say, for argument's sake, I always think back to that conversation you have when you're talking to a potential client and you say, I was just listening to your podcast today, actually. I think you said this. What happens if nothing changes in the next 5 years? So I would love for you to imagine if you had not overcome these eating disorders, or maybe you kind of partially overcame them, but you listened to what that person said, who said, you're never really going to be over this. And you're like, okay, I guess this is just who I am and how this is going to be. How do you think that might have affected where you are today when it comes to the work that you do and your business and your entrepreneurial journey?
It's going to sound dramatic. But for me, I honestly think I wouldn't even be on the earth. Because before I went into treatment, I felt that I had a purpose. I remember sitting in the parking lot of the place where I worked. I worked at the medical center, and we had to park in this like stadium parking lot. It was a 15-minute walk just to get into the building, because any big medical center, it's such an ocean of offices. And I had walked to the parking lot, and I was sitting in the car, and I had spent the day in my office, like agonizing over cookbooks and trying to think, what can I make that's going to perfectly fit into the right plan? And I would get so anxious that my teeth would literally chatter. Like I would just I know you probably can't hear that, but my teeth would chatter. And I just cried out to God, and I said, I believe that you have a purpose for me, but I cannot continue to live like this. And I don't think you want me to die, but I don't see how I can keep living like this. So God, like, you've got to get me some help, and you've got to make this is when I was looking at going into treatment, like, you've got to make this work. Like, I am just crying out to you. And so for me, you can just totally cross off the list. Had I not made a change, the $500,000 a year business that I'm privileged and absolutely love running right now, there's no way I would have ever had the mental capacity or the energy to, it took a lot of energy to get my business off the ground, like 2 full years of putting in work and learning and market research and crafting and testing and pivoting, on top of practicing law full time. So there's no way I would have had the energy to do that if I had still stayed in that obsession with food. But even if I hadn't been on that, extreme end of the eating disorder spectrum, just the amount of exercise that I was doing in the name of health. I remember my dad, actually, I think it was my dad, one of my parents saying, I'd be at the gym for 2 hours a day, saying, Anna, when you get in the real world, like if you get married, if you have a family, when you have a full-time job, you're really probably not going to be able to spend 2 hours in the gym every day. So just be aware. And I was like, well, no, I will spend 2 hours. But honestly, and I could have, but had I stayed committed to, well, this is what I must do, that's 2 hours of doing something that can make an impact far beyond myself that would have been taken away.
Mm-hmm. And I love that because I feel like that's what people tend to not realize when they're making the decisions about how to create their own fitness plan or food plan. They don't think about the cost of putting so much time and energy into that area of their life. And so I've been quoted a couple times on like podcasts or articles talking about how if somebody's at the gym 6 or 7 days a week, maybe they're there for an hour or maybe 2 hours like you were. I think I used to go for 2 hours in college, but it was mostly because I was in like one class for my final semester senior year. And so I was like, I got a lot of free time.
And let me make the differentiator. I'm not saying that it's bad or wrong to go to the gym 2 hours a day. When I was a freshman, I walked on the track team. So literally I was running 8.5 miles a day for our track team. And I wanted to lift because I wanted to be strong. And I was working abs every day. So I had the core strength to get me through those vast amount of miles. That was actually before I dipped into the anorexia. So that was just when, frankly, at that point, I just looked like the cover of a fitness magazine. I was just really, and I was kind of similar to you when you're talking about volleyball. Yes, I ate high quality foods, but I ate a lot. Like people would be astounded when they see how much I ate, but I was also expending a lot of energy. But at that point in my life, that was actually really healthy. And that was the phase of my life because that was one of the things that I was committed to doing I ended up pulling my Achilles. So I never even competed. And I was a walk-in. Let me just be clear about that because Ole Miss is an SEC school. And I frankly did not have the talent of an SEC level runner, but they were nice enough to let me walk on. And, but that was like part of my job at that point was to get out, to be prepared. Had I not gotten injured, I was preparing for the 3,200. And so that's different than just, once you've got other responsibilities. So it's like, and it shifts, right, from season to season. So I really want to be clear that I'm not saying you're doing something bad if you want to work out for 2 hours a day. There's times now that I might want to go on a 2-hour walk just because that is feeding my soul. But it's just important that you're looking at, why am I doing this? Is it because I love it and it feeds me? Or is it because I feel like I have to?
Right.
That's a differentiator.
Yeah. And that's basically exactly the quote that has gotten a little controversy that I've shared. But my quote was just to say that if you are training that frequently, the question to ask yourself is why? So if you're a college athlete or if you're, a personal trainer and you're, part of your job is to work on your own fitness and that kind of thing, that doesn't mean that training 2 hours is bad for everybody. It's just like you said, if you're somebody who has a full-time job that's not related to health and fitness and you have a family or you just want to have a social life even, it's like, is training an hour or 2 hours every single day during the week actually, first of all, necessary for the goals that you have? Second of all, beneficial because there is the possibility of overtraining, especially when somebody's under eating.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
As I could attest with my torn Achilles, now I can look back and actually I had a friend who ran, or kind of an acquaintance friend, gal who ran at Auburn. And when we compared training schedules, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm totally overtraining because she was just doing a lot more speed and intervals. But you're right. That's a great point. Is it necessary? Oftentimes, if you're doing something shorter, like that can even get you better results because your body isn't just being worn into the ground.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then even if you get to a place where it's something that is healthy for your body, it is a trade-off. Like we were saying, you have to, anything you say yes to, you have to say no to something else. So if you're saying yes to going to the gym every single day, you're saying no to other opportunities that could come up during that same time that might be something that would really be beneficial to you or be something that would really feed, like you said, feed your soul, like spending time with others, maybe doing some, community service, anything that kind of gets you out of your own self and connects you with others, I think is something worth building into your schedule. And if that means you have to train less to make space for it, I think it's a worthwhile trade-off. Now, this is going to kind of take a little bit of a left turn, but one of the things that I know that you're very passionate about being a faith-centered business owner that coaches and mentors other Christian business owners is this concept of investing in yourself and investing in coaching as a Christian. And it's something that can get pretty controversial. And I know that, between your inpatient eating disorder treatment to law school to, the coaching that you enrolled in to get prepared to be an entrepreneur. And then I know that you're a fan of constant investments in yourself and your personal development. You've gone through a lot of phases where you were investing in the support that you needed to overcome challenges and to get the results in your life that you wanted to get. How does faith come into that conversation? Because something that I see, and I assume you see it as well, is that a lot of Christian women out there, they feel like investing in themselves and hiring a coach for anything that they might want to accomplish is selfish, or, that they don't deserve that, or it's a waste of money. So
or they're not being a good steward of their resources.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious if you have feedback about that. Cause like I said, I mean, you're an example of someone who has invested in yourself in so many different areas of your life, whether it was just getting yourself out of a really dangerous situation all the way up to being the most capable and, empowered person that you can be, both physically and mentally and vocationally. So I would just love to hear your feedback on that, because I know that this is an area of expertise for you.
I love this question. So I actually have a keynote talk that I give on loving yourself with money, where I really am doing everything that I can do to invite a shift in perspective that people who have a faith, a belief in Jesus, a belief in God. I think that the church as we see it, the church as like physical buildings, which is not the biblical church, right? That's not the same thing as the biblical church. But the church where we sit and pastors talk to us has in some places done a real disservice to the conversation around investing and around stewardship and around money. And somehow Christians have gotten the idea that God wants us to be poor, and or that if we have anything above just our basic needs, like basic clothing, basic shelter, clearance clothing, let's be true about that. Clearance clothing, basic shelter, anything beyond that is really greed and is selfishness. And the Bible that I read, I don't see that. I see Moses, who was placed by God into Pharaoh's household and grew up incredibly privileged to position him to make an impact. I see Abraham, who was blessed with vast riches to position him to make an impact. I see Solomon, who asked for wisdom, who was blessed with vast riches to position him to make an impact, all impact for the kingdom. And so I'm actually quite baffled that Christians don't think that we should be rich in all areas. Like, we can be rich in all areas of life, whether it's rich in health, rich in finances, rich in our connections with other human beings and our relationships. So when it comes to the idea of investing, and the hesitation that faith-based people have about investing in themselves, I really think that is largely due to, I'll just say it, to a Satan a Satan angle of coming in and convincing believers that they're not worth it. And that's from the enemy, because God put each one of us on the earth because he wanted us here. And he wouldn't have put us here if we didn't have important work to do. And so from my view, the best investment that any of us can make is in our own selves to get us to our highest level of impact and of influence, because that's when we're going to make the most kingdom impact. For example, from a financial perspective, the more money that I can have flowing into my business, the more impact I can make, the more people I can reach, because I can do more marketing, I can get our message in front of more people, I can help and serve more clients. That creates a ripple impact in their own families, in their own communities, and I have much more to give back. For example, several of my friends, are involved in some major charities, and I see them at their live events write a check for $60,000, another check for $100,000, because they have these audiences and they are able to gather these audiences and just ask a simple 30-minute presentation, ask for contribution, and all of a sudden, bam, dozens of people's lives are forever altered because people with a certain mentality had money in their hands. So I just think you cannot go wrong by investing in yourself when you know that it is God calling you to do that. And something that I tell my clients is, God's not going to put a desire into your heart to tempt you, taunt you, or tease you. So, for example, if someone listening to this show, they've been listening to your show for a while, Laura, and they're struggling in the area that they know you can help them with, and they're feeling so drawn to you, but every time they go to click that book a call button, it's like, I don't know, like I could use that money for my spouse's, desire to XYZ, or, I could put my daughter in that ballet class. It's like, well, your daughter's 4. Like, she could probably take ballet in 2 more years and still be okay. And you could actually make an investment that's going to make you a better mom. And your daughter's going to mimic everything that you model to her. So as long as you're obsessive, you're basically setting her up for a life of entrapment. And you could make this decision right now to work on yourself. And that would make such a huge, lasting legacy impact on your whole family. That's just one small example. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. And I think it's so important to think about investing in yourself and coaching and personal development as being a way to serve others and to show up in relationships even better. Like you said, if you're somebody who's struggling with disordered thinking around food and exercise, and you're at the gym 2 hours a day and you're afraid to miss a workout, that kind of mindset, it's sometimes hard to see it when you're in it. And I'm sure, when you were in the depths of the eating disorder, you probably weren't aware of the impact it was having on other people. But I've heard of this. Yeah, I've heard this from other people where they said, I didn't even realize until somebody told me, once they went through this process and were healing their minds and their bodies and just feeling better, people would tell them, wow, you're so much more fun now. Like, it's so much more enjoyable to spend time with you because you're not all stressed out and you're not exhausted or snappy or, whatever kind of emotional changes come from malnourishment and overexercise and self-punishing type of behavior. So and it's tough because, like we said, when you're in it, sometimes you don't even realize how it's impacting not only your ability to follow God's leading in your life, but also your ability to show up in other people's lives. And so I feel like it's great to have your perspective on that, to show people, hey, this is not just about you being selfish or you being like needy or anything like this. This is you taking the opportunity to get better and get to a place where now you can serve others because you're not in that dark place of self-hatred and, struggling with things that you were never created to struggle with.
Yeah. And I have to say something potentially controversial here, in that you're like, this is not about, you being selfish to get the coaching and the support that you need. I wasn't fully aware of the negative impact I was having on so many people around me, but I was somewhat aware of it. I knew that I was like snappy and irritable and frankly pretty awful, not really to people in public, but to the people who knew me most, which is, I think, how a lot of us are. It's like the people we know will love us no matter what. Like, they get to see our real true sides, right? And it was actually really selfish of me not to get the help that I needed for so many years, because I knew deep down I needed it. I wasn't ready to get it for a long time because I was bound and determined that I was going to have it my way and kind of to heck with everybody else, until I realized, oh my gosh, like my way is going to end. If you're looking at 5 years down the road, like it ain't going to end well. Yeah. And that's not to accuse other people of being, selfish, because I don't know any of your listeners' stories, right? Or probably don't know many of their stories. But I think it's important to think about, you can absolutely reframe, like it could be selfish of you not to get the support that you need.
Mm-hmm. Well, and hopefully if anybody is feeling, conflicted about feeling selfish versus not feeling selfish, that you hear me and Anna's approach is really just helping you see the value of getting help if you need it, and the kind of life that is waiting for you on the other side of overcoming these challenges that you're experiencing. So this isn't meant to shame anybody. It's meant to help you see that it's more than just about money, right? Because as you always say, money is just a tool, and there's always the opportunity to get more money, but you can't get back your life that you're wasting with, either physical health challenges that are caused by these decisions, or, emotional or mental challenges because of them, or just the relationships that are getting impacted by either your poor health or your over focus on these areas. So I feel like when it comes to investing in yourself, we have to just kind of eliminate that mindset of, oh, this is a waste of money, or I don't deserve to spend this money on myself, or just think of all the other ways I could spend this money that would be better for my family. We need to have that mindset that your mental, physical, and spiritual health is actually beneficial to not only you, but also the people around you.
Yes, and you're worth it. And absolutely no shame intended by anything that I've said, because I do believe shame is from the enemy. I think Holy Spirit convicts, like he'll convict us. I was convicted many times when I was in that pattern of doing things that were, yes, destructive to other people around me, but also really destructive to me. But Holy Spirit will never condemn. And so there's zero condemnation, zero shame, but you're worth it. And you wouldn't be still breathing if you weren't. Like, there's a reason that you're listening to this podcast, and there's a reason that you're doing exactly what you're doing at this moment, whether it's, putting up dishes or folding laundry or on the treadmill or in the car or, making the bed, all the things that I do when I'm listening to podcasts. Like, that's for a reason. And so I just truly believe each one of us, like, we investing in ourselves is the best investment that we can make, not just for ourselves, but for humanity in general, which sounds really broad, but I do believe that to be true.
Mm-hmm. So another question that I have for you, kind of along this line of kind of seeing ourselves as being worth investing in, and having God's vision of us and being able to see ourselves through God's eyes, impacting the choices that we make and the way that we live our lives. I know that in the past, it sounds like you were not feeling this way. And then this was really the place where you overcame a lot of this negative self-image and lack of feeling loved. Now that you see yourself through God's eyes, how has that impacted your success as an online business owner?
Well, first of all, it's allowed me to take some risks that if I were hinging my value on kind of outside parameters, I would never be able to take. And some of those, with risks come rewards oftentimes. I mean, that's either risk, but like the bigger the risk, often the bigger the reward. And so, there have been decisions that I've been able to make in the business because I know I'm loved no matter what. And I know that my value as a human being doesn't depend on the success of a particular launch, or if a program, if I send out a series of emails for a program and I thought 30 people were going to buy and 3 people buy, that says nothing about me. And so it's enabled me to have this, what I talk about to my clients, this gladiator-like resilience of, okay, cool, that didn't work. That's feedback. And our mutual mentor, James Wedmore, talks about, like, there's no such thing as failure. There's only feedback. Having that knowledge that I am inherently valuable, that has enabled me to weather a lot of ups and downs and things that I've seen knock many entrepreneurs just completely off kilter. And in particular, it was instrumental in me switching niches early in my business, or about 2 years into my business, a little less than 2 years into my business, which is when everything took off, because I actually started out as a health and wellness coach due to my background of having overcome both anorexia and binge eating. My first business coach just heard my story and said, great, go get a health and wellness coaching certification, and that's what you can do. I said, all right, you make money, so I'll trust you. And I made a grand total of, I think, less than $2,500 in 2 whole years almost of working in that niche. And I kept myself stuck because I kept thinking I'm not successful because I haven't made this certain amount of money. I haven't made six figures in my business, and I want to coach people on how to grow an online business, but I can't do that because I haven't made money. And I was working with a different coach who helped me redefine my definition of success along the lines to how I redefined my definition of being lovable, back when I was overcoming the eating disorders. And so instead of saying, I'll be successful when I have a six-figure business, I flipped it to, I am already successful. Like, why can't I define success in such a way that I'm included within the definition? That would be more helpful, wouldn't it? And so from that perspective, I was able to say, hey, I've invested tens of thousands of dollars in learning all these things to put my health coaching business online. And even though that business hasn't made a ton of money, I know how to do a lot of things when it comes to setting up an online business. So if I feel called to help other people do those basic building block things, I can. And I can charge for that because it's worth something and I'm worth something. And from there, that's when I shifted my niche and the business really just started to flow in. And I started thinking about how I could set myself apart in the market and started specializing in messaging and copywriting and getting apprenticed by, one of the world's leading copywriters, endorsed by him, ended up writing. I've written for multiple seven-figure launch. Just have gotten some incredible opportunities, but they all started by just believing that, okay, I'm successful because I'm here. I'm just successful because I am, not because of what I'm doing, how much money I have, how much I weigh, what I look like, all those blah, 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 blah. I'm successful because I'm Anna Powers.
Yeah, I love it. So, I know that there's so many things that you're doing with your business, and it's really fun to watch all the stuff that you serve clients with. And being your client, I love having the opportunity to be mentored by you. And I would love to hear from you. What is your big vision for the work you're doing and the impact that you hope to have on the world?
Oh my goodness gracious. This is such a great question. And I love visioning. And I do believe, the Bible says without a vision, people perish. And it's important to really know where we want to go. So my goal is to impact millions with the work that I do and to continue to grow the company. Right now, we're at just above the $500,000 a year mark for our 2019 revenue. And so I'm looking for us to grow to seven figures and then to eight. And I am very open about that. Reason is not to just amass vast amounts of money, but because the money is just an indicator of the reach and the impact that we can have. So I'm really, I've got a lot of ideas. I'm actually super selective about sharing the specific vision because I believe that there's power in sharing your vision with a very small group of people who are you're in that trust circle. Because there have been studies that done that have said when you share your vision with a ton of people, you can actually get that dopamine hit that, cool, I've already accomplished it. Because everybody's like, oh, that's such a great vision. That's amazing. So I'll leave out the specifics, but it is to continue growing and to develop, one of the things I'm really passionate about is to develop offerings that can serve people at all points of their journey. So for me, I do business mentoring. And so we have our high-level mastermind, which you're a part of, and you've also been a private client. So these are for people at the very top of their game who are looking to even go beyond their current ceiling. But then we've also built out our Magnified group coaching program, which is for entrepreneurs who are faith-based to really develop their own ascension model in business. And then we have the messaging program, which is folded underneath that. And then we have our free platforms like the podcast, Faith Forward Online Business. And so my goal is to continue to build out even additional layers in that ascension model so that no matter where you are in business, if you're a faith-centered online entrepreneur, you have a home with us and you have support from us.
I love it. And I will be curious to see if you leak any of these, the visions that you have for the business over time, because I just love watching what you're doing and seeing all the ways that your business has grown even since I met you a year and a half ago. So just really inspiring to watch. And that's why you're my mentor, because it's, you pick mentors based on seeing people that are doing what you want to do, essentially.
Well, I am honored to work with you. And for all your listeners, I remember very well when your form came in, I knew exactly who you were. And I think I had been following your Instagram, and I was so excited. I was like, oh, yes, she's a yes. I already know. I need to talk to her first. I know she's a yes. And I was so excited to see your name come through, because I know you're up to big things in the world. I know God has given you big vision for where you're going to go with the work that you're doing and the impact that you're making on women and men, all over the world.
Oh, well, thank you, Anna. And I have one more question for you. It's a little bit of a surprise question, but I do ask this of all my interviewees.
I love surprises.
Hopefully, sometimes I throw this at people and they're like, oh, I wasn't ready for that, because it's kind of a deep question. But the question is, what do you believe makes a person more than a body?
Okay. The fact that you exist to me means you are more than a body. It's not even a question of how can I become more than a body. It's like you are. I use this example a lot, but if you could see me, I'm holding up a pen and now I'm going to release it, and surprise, it fell into my lap because there's gravity. Gravity is a law. It exists whether you believe it or not. So, you are more than a body. You can choose to accept that fact or you can choose to reject it, but you are. And each of us is, I believe, created with a soul and a spirit. And I actually believe we are eternal beings. We're in this little slice of our eternity, which is our earth life. But there's a whole ton more that our human brains can't even wrap themselves around that's on the horizon. And I think that's actually why it's so important that we live into that eternal nature while we're here now.
I love it. That was a great visual of the dropping the pen, and hopefully people could imagine that if they're listening to the audio. Well, Anna, it's been such a pleasure to chat with you and to get to hear more about your story and how your journey with the eating disorder, with the way that you changed your approach to food and exercise, how that allowed you to really break free of this, really the chains of perfectionism around your food and the belief that that was the most important thing to be focused on above other things that were so much more valuable for you. And to be able to go from that place to build that $500,000 plus business that you're growing and getting to the next level of figures, I'm sure very soon. It's just really inspiring to watch. And I hope that those people listening can see themselves in your story and see, hey, just imagine what my life could look like if I were to overcome this challenge that I'm experiencing now. And it's not hopeless. And there's always the opportunity to overcome that stuff. And I think Anna's a great example of what's possible in your life when you do the work to get to a place where you have overcome it. So all of that said, if people are listening and they're like, hey, I'm a faith-centered business owner and I would love to learn more about how to magnify my business and magnify my God with my business, where can they find you and get all your juicy information?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come onto the podcast and speak with your listeners. I'm so grateful. And this was such an amazing conversation, like so much fun to just get to share, because I get to share about the business stuff a lot, but I don't often get to go into kind of the more personal backstory of it. So thank you for the opportunity. If any of your listeners, hey y'all, want to connect with me, you can find me at my website, which is saraannapowers.com. And there's no H on that, Sarah. So 2 A's together. It looks kind of weird. saraannapowers.com. Or on Instagram at Sara Anna Powers. And I love Insta stories and DMs, and I respond personally to them. So you can reach out to me there. And also I have a podcast called the Faith Forward Online Business Podcast, where you can really dig into a ton of helpful content and interviews if that's where you're looking to expand your impact.
Awesome. Well, we will make sure that all of those links are shared in the show notes for today's episode. And Anna, thank you so much for coming on. I so value your time and your expertise and your willingness to share openly with the audience to show them what is possible when you start loving yourself for who God made you to be and you let go of that perfectionism around food and fitness. And just super grateful to have you here.
Thanks, Laura.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for spending the last hour with us, and we will look forward to seeing you here next week on the Fed and Fearless podcast. Take care, everybody. Hey there, Laura Schoenfeld here again. Are you a dietitian or nutrition entrepreneur who wants to start or grow an online business? Are you feeling stuck, frustrated, or even downright scared when you think about taking the next step towards your dreams of entrepreneurship? Trust me when I say that I've been there before. I've been running my own online business since 2014, and I worked with Chris Kresser to help him grow his business starting in 2012. And over the past 8+ years, I've learned a lot and made a lot of mistakes when it came to creating the multiple six-figure business I now run today. And if there's one thing I've learned since starting my business, it's this. You don't have to figure out how to transform your knowledge, expertise, and passion into profitable online courses, digital products, and memberships on your own. I've personally invested over $100,000 in my own business education, mentorship, and coaching. And I can honestly say that I have no idea where my business would be today had I not taken the leap to invest in myself and in my success. I might not be running a business where I get to work with amazing clients every day, helping them solve their biggest health and business challenges so they can live the purpose-driven life they were put on this earth for. Remember, becoming an in-demand expert in your business isn't about being egotistical or selfish. It's about having a deep commitment and a burning desire to help others. And if you're not growing your business successfully, there are hundreds and maybe even thousands of people out there who are missing out on the opportunity to get the amazing help and support that you were born to provide. You're here for a purpose, and if helping people improve their health by running an online business is one of your purposes, then I have an exciting opportunity that'll help you build your business even faster and easier than ever before. My world-class business coach, James Wedmore, is releasing an awesome video series for entrepreneurs called The Rise of the Digital CEO. In this series, James shows you exactly what keeps most business owners stuck and struggling, and reveals the 5 areas you need to focus on to overcome whatever is standing in the way of your success. Now, if you don't know James Wedmore, he's a self-proclaimed serial entrepreneur who's built multiple 7-figure businesses in multiple niches. He's also one of my favorite coaches and mentors, and he's helped me completely transform my mindset around business so I could grow my income and impact while also working less and enjoying life more. The financial and time freedom I've experienced has been life-changing, and I want you to have that experience in your business as well. This is your chance to tap into a series of instructional videos that'll show you exactly what you need to blast through whatever's got you stuck and give you the power and confidence to take on the world of online business. And best of all, this video series is totally free. So if you're ready to start taking charge of your business and your life, go to fedandfearless.com/rise to watch these videos before they go away. While you're there, you can also get on the waitlist to learn more about James's amazing online program, Business by Design, which helps struggling service-based coaches and course creators transform their businesses from the inside out so that they can experience the time and financial freedom they desire while having a bigger impact on the world. And if you decide to join BBD under me using one of my links, you'll also receive bonus coaching from me. You'll learn additional tools and strategies that are specific to nutrition and dietitian entrepreneurs who want to start, grow, or scale their business to 6 figures and beyond. I'll be teaching you things like effective sales call strategies, how to stand out online in a crowded market, and how to develop your first or next online nutrition program, and more. If you want to learn more and watch James' free video series, The Rise of the Digital CEO, go to fedandfearless.com/rise. This video series is only available until Thursday, June 25th, so don't miss your chance to learn the business strategies that have changed my life and the lives of thousands of online entrepreneurs. And feel free to DM me on Instagram if you want to find out more about my bonus business coaching opportunities for anyone who joins Business by Design under me. It's time to rise in your online business, and I can't wait to support you on your journey to becoming the confident digital CEO you desire to be.